Hi guys, so I was just taking photos of this beautiful scene here. That's Mount Hood. And I thought that it would be a good moment to show you really quick how I meter for my photos, the photos I take with the film camera of course, and why I do it the way I do it. So the first thing that I used to meter my photos was a smartphone app. I think there are a ton of them and all of them are pretty good and they are accurate enough. The problem for me, and that's why I stopped using them, is that they don't give you too much flexibility. And also, to be honest, I don't like to be messing with my phone while I take photos with the film camera. It's kind of ruins the experience. I don't know if it makes any sense. So then I bought a standalone old Minolta light meter that I think I showed here before. A light meter. Some old Minolta light meter, but it works. And I used that thing for 2 days. It's not that I didn't like it, it's not that it was not accurate, but it was just not for me. It was, you see, I carry a lot of equipment with me. The Bronica is a heavy camera and the lenses just make it worse. And then I have the tripod, filters, everything, film, and I have this camera that is 6500. That is the one I use to record these videos. So it's yet another thing to carry with me. So yeah, it didn't work for me. Took me a while, but I finally realized that I had been carrying with me the perfect light meter all this time, that it was the digital camera, and I want to show you why. Okay, excuse the squirrel. I'm gonna use my old A6000 to show you how I meter. I of course usually use the A6500, but I'm using it to record this video right now, so yeah. One reason why I like to use the A6500 is because it has a switch here on this wheel to switch between custom modes, and I use it to have a custom mode for video and another custom mode for photo. So this is what the custom photo mode will look like on my A6500. I always have the ISO set to 100, that's the speed that I shoot HP5 at, but of course I'll change it if I'm shooting a different film or if I'm pushing it or something. And what I do is I just point the camera to a subject like these trees, and I just copy or carry these settings that the camera is telling me, 1.640 and f11, to my film camera. But getting these settings, the shutter speed and the aperture, is something that you can do with your phone, and it's pretty accurate at doing it. But the camera has some key advantages. The first of them, I don't know if you can see the screen, but it's previewing the image in black and white, and I shoot black and white, so I can actually see kind of what the photo is gonna look like. Another reason is because not only we can preview the photo in black and white, but we can preview the actual exposure. Meaning, just imagine that we want to blacken the trees. We don't want details in the trees. So we could use this exposure compensation dial and just turn it down all the way to, say, 3 stops. And we will get a preview of what the photo will look like. Not that we want to do that. We could do the opposite though, if we want to blow up the sky and we want to have a lot of details in the trees, and just look how many stops we have to compensate the exposure to get that. And that translates in new settings that we can carry to our film camera again. And the last reason is this one. It's all about previewing the photo again. Now just imagine this is our image, that's the image we want to take. We have a shutter speed of 1/1000th of a second at the ISO that we want, but we want to have more contrast, or we want to darken the sky. So we could just place the filter here in front of our lens, and we would get, once again, a preview of the photo. As you can see, the sky is darker now, and the most important thing of all is like we get new settings. We have a shutter speed of 1/400th of a second now that we can carry and copy to our film camera. You see how it changes? 1/1000, 1/400. Not only we get the settings, but we get the preview, the effect that the filter is going to have in our photo. And yeah, that's about it. That's the method I use to meter. It works perfectly fine. My photos are correctly exposed. all the time using this camera's light meter. Of course, I did some testing at first. I copied the exact settings the camera was telling me, and I took 3 shots, one with the actual settings, one underexposed by one stop and one overexposed by one stop, and then I checked which one was the best one. I was actually the one with the actual settings, so I trust this camera. Alright, just one last thing I wanted to add to all this. And while I use the settings from the camera 90% of the time, sometimes I overexpose the photo a little bit. For example, if the camera is telling me f8, I would use f7.1 or even 5.6, depending on the situation. Because digital cameras have a really hard time with highlights. Film is the opposite. Film struggles with the shadows. For example, if you take a raw file from your digital camera, and you open that raw file with Lightroom and you move the slider of the shadow slider all the way to the right, you are able to recover a lot of detail. It's not gonna look awesome, but the detail is there. Like I've tried with raw files where I thought it was completely black and lost the shadows forever, and Lightroom was able to recover a lot of detail, crazy detail from those shadows. But that doesn't happen with the highlights though. If you blow out the highlights, they are gonna be white forever and ever. That's why the digital camera is going to try to be safe. It's going to try to expose for the highlights. You don't need to do that with film. Actually, the opposite. You should be exposing for the shadows if that's what you want. You might want to darken the shadows, or you might not want to have details at all on the shadows. But if you want to have details on both shadows and highlights, you should expose more for the shadows with film. So either you modify the settings in the camera to do that, to expose for the shadows, or you just trust the camera and overexpose a little bit. It works perfectly fine for me that way, so yeah. And that's about it. Thanks for watching again. See you in the next one. But sometimes though, if there is something really bright on the frame, like the sky or the sun or something, I know. So yeah, I use this